Hello, everybody. Welcome to another one of our Tuesday Q&As. And today we're talking about everything related to running your first online group program. And today I'm joined by my good friend, Julia Sarver. Julia, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We love talking online group programs. How many programs like that? And I know there's so many different kinds, but how many do you think you've run in your both of us have now been doing this. I counted, we're coming up on 13 years.
Yes. So I don't even think I can count, Michelle. I mean, so many. And yeah, I don't even know if I can count. And in so many different sorts of formats, because I've done them as a health coach with clients. I've done them as more of a business strategist for other people. So, I mean, can you count yours? Do you think you even know?
I don't know. I mean, in my head, it's hundreds. I don't know if it's actually hundreds.
It feels like hundreds.
It feels like hundreds. And they come in so many shapes and forms. And I know that for everybody watching and listening, coaches these days, I feel like are coming straight out of school thinking, boom, I want to create an online course.
Yeah.
And so and that was not the case when we graduated. I feel like we almost invented the online group course because it really wasn't a thing.
No, it was get together, at the coffee shop or the hotel lobby or the yoga studio. That's what was happening then.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these days it's like everyone's already thinking about something that they want to create, which is so cool, And we want to help you get there, but we know that it can be a little bit tricky at times, especially when you're like, I don't even know where to begin. And that is typically what I hear. So before we get into any of this, I want to let you know that Julia and I have a webinar coming up on December 1st, and we would love for you to join us. Julia, tell us a little bit about what we'll be doing there.
Well, in that webinar, we're going to be walking through the 5 steps that you need to take to successfully launch your first online group program. And we're going to be talking about that there. And for me, the first program was a cleanse. So we're going to be walking through how to do that if you're offering a cleanse specifically.
Awesome. And when we say cleanse, I always like to say this. A cleanse could be like a straight up cleanse. It could be the master cleanse, but it could also be a lot of other things, right?
Yes. And I will say I have never done the master cleanse and I will never probably do the master cleanse. But one of the things that I think can be really helpful is we have to look at what people are looking for and use the language that they're using. And often the words cleanse or detox or reset, those can be words that people in our community understand. And so that's why we're teaching this class on how to run a cleanse.
Awesome. So if you want to learn more of the nuts and bolts and get all of Julia's download specifically around this topic of running a cleanse or a cleanse-like program, you can join us. You have to register though. It's at healthcoachpower.com/cleanse. And we'll hope to see you there. But if we rewind time and go back to our very first online group programs, oh my goodness. So I know I started with a blank page. Like I could see it on my computer. I opened up Word and there was a blank page and I was just like, okay, I'm going to put stuff here. and that's pretty much where it began. And I eventually did get stuff on that page, but it was a little bit painful. Did you have a better process than that?
I think I may have had a better process than that because I actually did not start my first online group program, which was a cleanse. Until I had private clients were asking me about a cleanse. And all of a sudden people were saying, what do you think about this cleanse? Do you have a cleanse you offer? Oh, I wish you offered a cleanse. And so I started with, wait a minute, what? Like you all want a cleanse? And I thought, here's one thing that I think that all of us can do more is that I just thought to myself, well, shoot, I can figure that out, right? Like I can certainly figure out a way to run a cleanse. And so I ended up contacting my clients and also my newsletter list and saying, hey, are you interested in this? And if so, what do you want? If I'm going to make this for you, tell me what you want. And in hindsight, that was actually super brilliant. But at the time, I just sort of was like, what do they want? Like, I have no idea how to create a cleanse.
I guess I should ask them.
I guess I should ask them. And so they told me a lot of things. And so even though yes, of course, I started with a blank page and mine was a Word page too, which I think is so funny. Because now, of course, I'm all Apple. And I started with what did they want? And what they told me at first was that they really wanted something that was simple, something that had food that their whole family would eat, and also something that they could do in 5 days. And so that's where I started.
That is amazing that they gave you that information. So I love that. I don't think I was so smart. I think I looked at
You're
that
smarter now.
page.
That's fine. That was my one really good idea.
What's that saying? When you know better, you do better.
Yes.
I think what I did though, and it worked out. So I want to put this out there for all of you who are thinking, I'd like to run some kind of program, but I don't know how to
Hmm.
put it together. I'm going to be starting at a blank page. I just took what I was already doing with my private clients
Uh-huh.
and formalized it. I'm like, you know what? Every client's different, but generally, these are the things that we're always talking about. Generally, these are the different topics we cover, things that make the biggest difference. And I just sort of distilled my private clients down
Hmm.
into what I was pretty sure was going to work for the most people and wrote it out in a step by step protocol, for lack of a better word,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of the more organic flow of one-on-one coaching. And that's how I created my first program. I didn't ask anybody if they wanted it, but if you have been working with clients already, it does kind of give you a leg up, because you can say, hey, I know
Yeah.
that this is the thing that always moves the needle. And that's kind of how I started writing in that blank page. Was okay, well, first, I guess we'll do this, and then I guess we'll do that, and then finally we'll do this, and created those steps. um, that's like the really super scary part, because we think we have to be a big old expert in a topic in order to create a course.
Oh, yeah, I can dispel that myth right now, because when I offered my detox, I had never done one before. So I was like, oh, well, I better try a couple before, I really put this out there in the world. But that was actually, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I want to challenge you all, because I actually think it helped that I wasn't an expert, because I could sort of see the flaws in other programs, that other programs were too complicated. And so it made me really understand what was missing in the marketplace. And what was missing at that time was a very short program that could get people results, but also, everybody told me, I want my glass of wine on Saturday night. So I said, fine, we'll do Monday through Friday. And I think if I had been an too much of an expert, I could have gotten caught up in, oh, that's not long enough. They won't get results. They need to do it longer. And what I found was really important was giving them what they wanted, right? So that's how it worked for me.
That's so smart. And that's the difference between being like nutrition nerds and being smart marketers.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
give people what they actually want or willing to sign up for. I
Yeah.
love that. So when you ran your first cleanse, I'll share my story first, and then I want to hear
Do
from
it.
you. When I put together what I thought was going to probably be this program that people might like to follow, the next thing, of course, is how to get people signed up. And at the time, all I had was a blog, you guys. I really didn't, I had a very basic website. It was basically just a blog. And the only thing I could do was create a new blog post. And so I did, and I announced this event. And then I went to PayPal and I figured out how to make a PayPal button.
Mhm.
And it worked. I couldn't believe it worked, but I took the code from PayPal, I put it into the blog post, and boom, there was a place for people to click and pay me. It felt great at the time. Now, when I think about it, it was a little bit archaic, because, of course, when somebody sent money, the money went out of their bank account, came to me. Nothing else happened until I got back to my computer, whenever that was, the next day, or,
Mhm.
after I woke up and saw it. And then I would send them a confirmation email. I kind of would copy and paste the same text and send it to everybody manually. So there was a lot of like, how the heck do we make this work? But what you said earlier is so true. We can always figure something out.
Yeah.
So how did you sell your first program?
I'm just laughing because even though it's archaic, like we could still do that now if we had to, right? Like if we're still starting out, perfectly fine to do it. And also looking back, that was a long time ago for both of us. So I did it a little bit differently. I actually did a pre-sale, and I told people, I did it a couple different ways. But the very first time I did it, I was using a newsletter program at the time that allowed you to create events. And so I created an event which had its own unique URL, so I could share it on social, but I could also send it out via my newsletter. And then I did the same thing as you. As I went into PayPal, I figured out how to create a code. Got the email link for the code, put it on the page, the event page that I had there. But I also said to people, and again, I think this, in hindsight, this was very smart. At the time, I didn't really know how smart it was. I said, okay, all of you said you want this, pay me first. I said it way nicer than that, obviously. So I said, like, hey, here's the deadline by which to register. And then the program starts 2 weeks after. Now, here's where I was not as smart as Michelle. I sort of wasn't sure that people were actually going to sign up. But as they started signing up, I thought, uh-oh, I better get something together. Like now I actually have to create the content. So I had a much shorter window to be able to create the content. And I decided that what people really needed was a recipe guide. They needed a shopping list that they could just print and then go to the store and not think about it. And then they needed some kind of handbook that said, what is a detox? Why do we detox? What foods are allowed? What's not allowed? And then a protocol. And that was all I offered at the time. But I did it that way. And I ended up having 37 people in the first time I offered it, which, made it worth it. That was the most money I had made from a group program at that point, or sort of in one big chunk. And that felt really great to say, okay, this worked. Here's this program that they want. And now let's deliver it and see what happens.
Yeah. And how many of you would love to have 37 people sign up for like literally anything that you were to offer? So I want to talk more about how we got people to actually sign up, but also we're open for your questions. So if you're here live with us, run your ideas by us or pick our brains about how this process went. Because when I talk about how I run a program now, and I think you would agree, like the problem with you guys learning from what people are doing now and their businesses have grown and we have large mailing lists and we have, enough money to put into using fancy programs, as you see it as this very polished, higher end offering. That's not how we started, and it's not how you need to start. And if you think that's how you're going to start, you're probably not going to start at all because it's a little bit unattainable at first. Doing things a little bit more down and dirty is how you get going.
I'm a huge fan of quick and dirty to see if something works. Like it's worth it to just try it and see. And if we do, if we try to emulate the big names or people who have, hundreds of thousands of people on their list, sometimes we never get to that point of even finding out because we put so much energy into trying to make it perfect and then nothing ever comes out. And that's not what we want for you. We want you all to have something out there that's working and helping people. And I have to say, 37 clients for me now, that's not a huge number of clients anymore. But at the time, that was and it was the first time I realized, oh, this could work. Because I'd been doubting myself. I'll be really honest. I'd been doubting myself the whole way. I'd had a handful of private clients. I was trying to figure out how am I going to get more private clients. But when that happened, I was like, okay, this is an actual game changer. Like now I can see how to do this. So did you have that same thing?
It definitely blew my mind that I could make as much money as I did. So what happened with mine was I promoted it to my following that I had at the time. So I had a mailing list. I had been blogging regularly, very helpful, right? So I was set up for success in some ways. But I also partnered with a yoga studio that I was teaching at the time. And so, I just did a couple classes a week there, but I spoke to the owner and I said, could I run this program here at the studio? So I sold spots in real life at the studio with real people who would come in and meet with me. And on the exact same timeline, I sold spots virtually, which again was almost unheard of at the time. But I had people register who lived, wherever they lived across the country or across the world and collected money that way. So in the end, total in this program, I had 60 participants and it was about half and half. So it looks like we had about the same number of people coming from like our own organic audience versus, what I got through the yoga studio. But for me, working with 60 people at one time, I was like, oh my God.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot of people to even just for the administration, oh, I didn't get that email. Can you resend it? This kind of stuff. And just to, get to know and understand them and have conversations. It was a lot of people, but I was shocked that I could reach that many people with this, one block of time and that I could make as much money as I did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Once I got going, people were so enthusiastic. It was fantastic. So a lot of people are talking about these numbers. Like, how did you get 37? Someone said, I'd be happy if I had 10.
Yeah.
Megan says, been doing this for 6 years and doing groups with 100 to 300 signups per group. I'm
Awesome.
upping my price in 2022 because I'm adding a ton of content and I'm really nervous. Any advice? If you're easily selling spots in something, it's an excellent indicator that it's time for you to double your prices.
Agree. And also, Megan, you're saying you're adding value, right? It's one thing to keep it exactly as it is. And sometimes it is the right choice to actually increase the price. Because one thing that Michelle was just saying that I've also experienced is that sometimes you don't realize how much energy and time it takes to support that many people, right? Like maybe you're like, this is the right price, and you run it, and then you think, oh my God, that was not the right price. Like that was not enough. I didn't realize it was going to take that much work. And I certainly did increase my prices with my detox program over time. But I think, Megan, you just said you're going to add value. So then to me, that actually seems like a pretty good reason to tell people, here's why I'm raising the price. Do you agree?
I completely agree. And I'm really excited that you shared that, Megan, because so many other coaches are like, I can't do this. It's not going to work. Lori's asking, so if you're just starting and have a following that is non-responsive, do you still put out a group? Let's talk about if you're first starting out and maybe you have no mailing list, a small mailing list, right? I mean, I generally advise that if you shouldn't like come out guns blazing with like your $3,000 online program when you have no mailing list. I mean, it's just, it's not going to sell. But that doesn't mean that you can't do anything. You just have to think about it in terms of scale. How would I do this if only one person signed up or two people signed up? How would I do this if 20 people signed up? And then you're going to market yourself quite a bit differently than you would if you had that big mailing list.
Yeah.
So talk about what you did and that to get that 37, and then we'll talk about, what someone could do now.
So I had a fairly small newsletter list at the time, and I did not really have a blog. Because again, you guys, this was back when, man, websites were archaic and you would have to submit, like, it was a lot of work at that time. So I did a couple of different things. I obviously emailed my newsletter list, and I did that thing where I said, hey, are y'all interested in this? A lot of people wrote back and said, yes, I am interested. And I thought, okay, that was when I said, tell me what you want. And then I created the program. I did something actually similar on my Facebook profile, my personal profile, not my business, where I said, I'm thinking about creating a short Whole Foods based detox. Is anyone interested? Because I really wasn't sure. And on that one too, a bunch of people said, me. So then what I did is I tracked all the people who said they were interested. So that obviously was my group of my warmest leads. And those were the people who I followed up with the most to say, okay, great, I'm going to do it. Mark your calendar for these dates. That was the first message I sent, because I didn't know what I was including yet. I didn't have the PayPal link yet, but I didn't want them to think I had forgotten about them. So I got back to them right away saying, here are the dates, stay tuned. Then once I had everything else figured out, I said, oh, here you go. Here's the information. I'd love to see you join. And then I basically just tracked it in a spreadsheet. In addition to, I posted it on social, I sent it to my newsletter, but this is actually something that I talk about as your magic tracking list. And it works especially well when you're getting started. Just make a list of 30 people who you can invite, right? You can send them some, and Michelle, you and I have talked about this so many times, and I know you encourage people to do this too, but personal invites, shoulder tap invites, like, hey, excuse me, would you be interested? People respond really well to that. And if I'm offering something high end now, or really one-on-one now, that's how I still invite people, because there are certain people who I think could be good fits for certain programs. So I just invite them personally. And it's kind of funny because I think that can feel a little too scary sometimes, but I have to say there are ways you can word it so that it's just saying, hey, I'm starting this thing. Do you know anyone who might be interested? Instead of saying, you need it, which that cannot always go over so well, right?
Exactly. Especially when we're talking about health issues, might not want to call somebody out on it. I do hear a lot of coaches, because I teach this technique inside Healthy Profit University. I have shared this with all of you many times, that one-to-one outreach is really the fastest way for you to sign paying clients, whether it's your one-on-one coaching or you're selling a group. So you might think, little secret behind the scenes, you might think that online courses are always sold through a sales page. We send out a big email blast, point you at a sales page, and that's where we make all the sales. I mean, some sales are going to happen that way, yes, for sure. But quietly on the other side, what you don't see is a lot of this one-to-one outreach going on to
For
people
sure.
that are going to be interested, like you just said. And you can start by making that list of 20 or 30 people to get started.
Yep.
So that's awesome. And I agree with you. This is a technique you'll keep using. It's not just when you're first starting out, but it's kind of all you have when you're first starting out. If you don't have the big mailing list and you don't have
Yes.
your own podcast or whatever, this is how you're going to reach people. What do you say to somebody who's like, I don't want to, bother my friends and family asking them to join my thing. That's not how I want to market myself.
Well, I'm going to be real curious how that person plans to market themselves otherwise, because I think, you just said that's the only way that you have to market yourself when you're starting out. And I think sometimes when we only have the one way, we can diminish it, right? We can think it's not a useful way or a good way. And it's absolutely the most powerful way to get people to work with you. And I understand that it can feel very nerve-wracking to put yourself out there. One of the things that I learned for myself was that when I created my detox program, it created this separation of me from my business, right? Like sometimes when we're offering private coaching, that feels like, hello, I am offering you myself. And that can feel really like, what if they don't like me? And it can feel really emotional and scary and hard. But what I found was that when I created a product where I could just say, I've created this detox. Do you know anyone who might be interested? Then if people said no, then it was like, oh, like, okay, it's not that they don't like me. They just don't need that product. I know that maybe sounds a little bit funny, but that made a huge difference for me. I don't know if you had that as well. You had a mom who like always told you could do anything. So maybe that never crossed your mind. But for me, I was like, oh, maybe they won't like me, but it created a little separation.
Well, yes, I agree. I think the more I've run programs, created true products, things like that. I mean, even now to sell one-on-one coaching, that's just another product. But
Exactly.
in the beginning, oh my God, it feels so personal and you take it so
It does.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with you. If you don't want to sell this way, it's going to be real interesting trying to figure out how you will sell when you're starting out. Do you have money for a billboard? Like, what are you planning?
Do you have money for ads? Do you have, all of that. And even a billboard or ads, you need to have a proven product. Like any business coach or ads person worth their value is going to say, I'm not going to work with you to, amplify your message until you have a product that's proven. And I think that's what's really nice about running something like this, an online program, is you can do it this way. You can do this shoulder tap personal invite and just get 10 people and see, does this even work? Let's find out.
Yeah, exactly. If it doesn't work, oh well, didn't spend any money. Oh well,
Yep.
I only told a couple people about it. I could just pretend that never happened.
Yep.
It's a really nice way to dip your toe in. So again, I want to invite all of you to join Julie and I for a webinar dedicated on teaching you how to run a cleanse, specifically whether your cleanse is a gluten-free cleanse or the keto cleanse or the vegan cleanse or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be the same process. And we're doing that on December 1st. You can sign up to join us. It's free at healthcoachpower.com/cleanse. We have a couple questions that I think we should hit.
Awesome.
So this one's from Michael. He says he's asking about the differences in obtaining clients for a scheduled start date program versus an evergreen program.
Oh, I have a lot of feelings about this. So here is my take. You can have it be evergreen. And it's so funny you brought this up, Michael, because I was thinking in the back of my head, like, Michelle, we really need to we need to tell them all the secret about Evergreen too, because the idea is that it just sits on your website and it sells. And that's not really how Evergreen works. You actually have to launch to Evergreen in some way. Evergreen just really means that you as the practitioner are not delivering live content. The content is already there. So that's totally another sidebar, but we should talk about that at some time. But I really feel like running it, I always did it in a certain week. And the reason I did that is because it built momentum, it built excitement. But the other thing that I think people don't realize that makes a huge difference is that you need to give the people in your following, in your audience, a reason to say yes or no. And saying no is okay. The worst place for them to stay stuck is in the land of maybe or next time.
I'll do it later.
Yes, I made this mistake, Michael. I made this mistake the first time because I had 37 people and I was like, woo. And then a bunch of people said, I couldn't make that one. Can I come to the next month? And I was like, okay. Then I had 40 and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. Like I was so convinced that was going to continue forever. And then Y'all, the third month, no one signed up. I offered it and not one person. And I realized what happened was it was becoming too common and it was becoming too available. And it didn't, because people then were thinking like, oh, I can get it at any time. Well, then they didn't buy it ever. And occasionally someone will come and purchase a detox from me, occasionally from that sort of evergreen model. But when I really got focused on, okay, this is the week, it's happening 4 times a year, mark your calendars, it's coming this time, here's the door open date, here's the door close date. That was when my numbers went from 37 to like 100 every time, because people had to decide. Do you have feelings about this too?
100% agree. Evergreen sounds so good and it can work, but it is hard. It is harder. And I would not even think about it. I wouldn't even dream about it unless you've been doing it live for a while.
Yeah.
Then you can start to segue and kind of learn the nuances of selling evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and I do both, and they're kind of different beasts and they require different technology. And I don't know where you are in your practice right now, Michael, but for most coaches listening, start with the live start date, a set week, like Julia said, or set however many weeks your program's going to be. And it's going to sell much better when you have that deadline. People need a deadline or else they're just going to go, I'll do it next time.
I'll do it. The diet starts Monday, but that happens forever. And I think, one of the other reasons I feel like this is important is because the kind of community that was created in my detoxes was pretty incredible. In just, 5 days, people became friends. And then I would be able to see it and say, here's when the next one's going to be, or here's the next program. People were excited about it. And then they would bring people from their lives to the next one. So I actually had a significant amount of organic growth that I would not have had if it had been only evergreen.
I have a question here from Megan. She said, do you recommend having clients do your group programs before they do one-on-one? And I think it really kind of depends what the program is and how it fits into the scheme of things. But how have you seen it work well when you're offering one-on-ones, but also group programs?
So I would often include a detox program with my one-on-one coaching. It was like a bonus. I didn't do it separately with them. I just would say, whenever the next one is, the fact that you're working with me one-on-one lets you join that for free. So I did that for a couple of reasons. One, it wasn't a high cost item, so it was easy for me to gift that to people. And it also sort of helped me bump up the prices of one-to-one coaching, because I could say, oh, well, you also get this and you also get this. But two, it was great because then the people in the group would say like, oh, private coaching with Julia is so great. So that would help support my private coaching business. But then after they were done with private coaching, they had the experience of the detox, and then they would come back to that. So they would still stay in my business, right? They were still paying customers. So that's kind of how I looked at it. Is that what you did, or did you do something different?
I felt like I often had people who would only do a lower cost group program and they were never going to do anything else. And then I had people who would see me. This is always interesting to me. I would advertise this online group program and, maybe do a whole little launch, a little blitz about it. And people would contact me kind of over here on the side and go, hey, I saw you're running that thing. I don't want to join a group, but I would like to work with you one-on-one. And I'm like, oh.
I had that too. So I also had, and that was actually, Megan, that was a surprise for me, because when I launched my detox, it was at a point where I was like, I feel like I've worked through all the people I know. I don't have any more private clients coming in. Then there were all these people who kept coming back to the detox, and I would ask them, do you want to work with me privately? And they were like, nope, no, like this is where I want to be. And I was like, oh, because I love coaching. So like, I sort of was like, you don't love it like I do, but I had that same experience too.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I have one more question that I think is a really good one for us to end on. Lori's asking, are detoxes the best choice for a group program? And what I want to say, Lori, is that there are so many different types of programs that you can run, but I usually think of them in like one of two categories. As a health coach, you can run a program that has a set plan or protocol. Everyone who joins, like these are the steps we're going to take together. Here's what we're going to do, right? You're laying it out for them. It's like a process. Or you can run group programs that are more amorphous, more like private coaching is, where you're doing small group coaching. You can be doing it online. You're going to show up. What do you need today? What's important for us to talk about? And it happens really organically. Both are solid options.
Mhm.
But a detox, I think when we use the term detox or cleanse, we're kind of using it as an umbrella statement for a program that has a protocol of some kind.
Right. That it has some rules. And also, what I like about a detox, and I will say that, and you all may borrow this, I always say, hit the reset button on your eating habits. The reason that I say that is most people know what that means, right? And they also, with a detox, they really understand what it is. And I like it because it has a start and an end. There's a clear understanding of what you're going to get. There's a clear understanding of what the transformation might be. And also, like I said, I love coaching. I'm always in a million coaching programs because I'm really interested in it. And some of them have very specific goals and others are more amorphous. There's not a right or a wrong. You just want to think about what is my business need? And for me, the detox was the perfect entry point for people to have an opportunity to work with me, and then also it let people sort of understand what I did. And so my referral network, because the detox is so clear, grew very rapidly after I added it.
So interesting. So there's so many opportunities out there. There's so many different courses that you can create in your practice. I feel like whether you're running it for free to build your list, you're doing it to earn some money, you're doing it as a way to increase that referral network. There's so many benefits to running something like this. So even if you're not sold on, I want to run a cleanse in my business, I want to encourage you to join us on December 1st for Julia's How to Run a Cleanse webinar, because you will learn how to run a program that follows some kind of process, has some sort of rules, and you can then take that and make it fit, whatever is right for you, your business, and your target market. So the URL again for that is healthcoachpower.com/cleanse. And we will see you there. And Julia, thank you again for being here today. I love going down memory lane with you.
I know. It's so funny. And I can't believe we have almost 26 years between us to do that. We don't look it though, right, everybody?
Not a day over 11 years in the business.
There you go.
Wonderful to see you. And we'll see you soon in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.